One of the biggest barriers to entry with motorsports is, well, the cost. I mean, before you even show up, you have your entry fee, your safety equipment, your vehicle prep. I mean, for some practices of racing, you have to have a whole different car. But there is an affordable way to go racing, and it's actually very fun and technical, and that's autocross. So today I'm going to give you a quick tips and tricks guide of how you can go racing affordably with autocross. So to start off, let's define what is autocross, in case you're not aware of it. It's also called MotorCon in a couple other places in the world, like Australia. In its most simple form, it is a timed event through a course. So either that course is laid out with cones in a parking lot. Sometimes they take an evolution of that it's called a track sprint, where you're doing essentially a full lap of a track with a start point and end point, timing beams. You're scored based on your time alone, and if you hit any cones, you get a time penalty. Cars are broken into classes, much like other motorsports, and the classes are defined by the type of car, engine, drive layout, modification level, and so on. Before you even get to the car aspect of it, autocross is a super affordable way to go racing. I mean, most of the time, entry fees for one of your track days, whether that be like around here in Michigan, like whether it be Grattan or Gingerman, a track day will maybe run you $200-300 or even north of that. For autocross, the average entry fee is about $35 around here. I'm sure it varies a little bit around the rest of the country. I've heard of like $20 ones. SCCA Nationals are usually around 80, but still quite a bit cheaper than going on a track day. Yeah, you're not going to get the seat time of a track day, but in terms of affordability, super approachable. It's also super approachable when it comes down to your safety equipment. All you need is a Snell 2015 or newer rated helmet. You can get the open face ones or closed face like this. A couple $100, maybe you buy one used in your size, and bam, you can go racing in your street car. One of the key aspects of autocross, and it's what helps make it so affordable, is you can race essentially anything, as long as it passes tech, and tech is fairly loose. Just make sure your battery's held down, make sure your car isn't leaking, tires can't be showing cords, and you need a helmet. If you follow those, you're pretty much in. You can't be driving a lifted four-wheel drive pickup, sorry, but basically anything else, you're fair game. And that in itself kind of leads to one of the first tips I have for trying to do autocross/motorsport affordably is just start with the car you have. I mean, if you have a Civic, you're already starting off pretty damn strong. I mean, you have a platform that you can learn a lot with. Sure, you might not be the fastest, but if you're just starting out, you got a lot to learn. You're not going to be setting the world on fire out the gate. And really, you got to start with that mindset, because otherwise, you aren't really going to be learning much if you don't recognize the fact you need to learn stuff. So, like 4 years ago, I started with this. This is my 1990 Trans Am GTA. Completely stock setup, at least when I first started. Just regular summer tires. It's a 350 700 R4 car. Still factory tune port. It is what it is, or it was what it was when I started. And by starting with a basic car, you kind of get to grow with the car. You learn, hey, here's what I feel the car could use to be faster, and you can address that. And just pick away at it, one item by one item. Let's say the steering feels loose. It doesn't feel like it's really responding how I would like it to. Or it's lax or lazy. Okay, replace the steering components to tighten things back up. then you can feel how that affected the car, and now you can start looking at other aspects. And that kind of helps keep the cost under control too. You're not just throwing the parts out. You're just not throwing the parts bin at it. Because if you do that, you're not going to know what change actually helped you. And being able to identify how these changes affected the car's handling, how it stops, how it turns, how it accelerates, that's really going to help you as a driver too. If you don't have a car that's really in the realm of trying to do a motorsport, let's say you have an HRV or a Ford Escape, but you want to get into it, you at that point you probably are better off buying a car to try to approach this with. But the key thing to look for when buying a car to start exploring autocross or motorsports in general is affordability. Obviously, that's the main topic of this video. And B is aftermarket support. That aftermarket support is going to help your affordability immensely. Because, so like for example, I was starting with a third generation F-body, third generation F-body being the third generation Camaro and Firebird. There is a basket of parts for these things, whether it be suspension upgrades or even just replacement parts. They're plentiful and they're cheap because GM used a bunch of these components on a bunch of different other vehicles. For example, my front brake calipers, they're the same as an S10, a Regal, Monte Carlo. They're plentiful, which makes them cheap, which helps you with your affordability. And because it's such an highly aftermarket supported platform, when you do start to have a little bit more jingle in the pocket to spend on upgrades, you have more to select from. And they're more developed. For example, sway bars. There's at least 5 companies making front sway bars for this. Same thing for lowering springs and that kind of stuff. And variety is great because that means maybe you really feel like you need to throw a sway bar in it, but I can't spend the QA1 money. Okay, that's fine. You can spend money on a lower level one. It may not perform like the top level one, but it will be an improvement over your factory setup. Another thing to note about selecting a car, it might be very beneficial to select a car or platform that has multiple performance packages. As you go on, you could buy used components or even new replacement components from those performance levels and put them on your base level car. You've saved money right there already. You didn't have to buy the performance level car right out the gate. You can piecemeal it a bit, and that lowers your initial cost, I guess is what I'm getting at. Some of the platforms right now that are pretty good value buys, late 90s and early 2000s Civics are, yes, SIs, not affordable. Let's be real. If there's one that's clean, it's pricey. But, like a DX or something, give you a good car to start with. You're going to get excellent gas mileage on the way to an event. And you could buy some SI pieces here and there to start getting your car more up to that SI level or beyond. Another one is the 4th generation Camaro and Firebird. They seem pretty slept on right now. You get pretty good power. They're good handling cars, especially with a good tire. And yeah, huge aftermarket support. Oh, cannot forget the C4 Corvette. One of the best handling cars of the 80s, and they really haven't caught up in price much at all yet. You can find beaters of these things for $2,000, and they might even run. Or if you want a running one that's kind of, a good 20-footer in terms of looks, $5,000 to $8,000. Hard to argue with that. Obviously, Miatas are great. The price on those is going to be a little bit, might be a little bit much. But if you want to find a beater Miata, that's a good option, always, for autocross. Let's talk tires, because they're really the most crucial part of any motorsport, because it's quite literally where the only contact point between your vehicle and the racing surface, whether that be a parking lot, a racetrack, or a drag strip. If you're trying to do autocross affordably, what I'd recommend personally is find a good summer tire for your rig. Why? Why wouldn't you just go to a 200 treadwear race tire? Well, two major factors. One, if you do a good summer tire, you can use this for driving to the event, around town in the week, or when you're not racing. And they're also going to be fairly sticky for when you do actually race it. Also, the initial cost of them is significantly less. I believe I picked up this set of General G-Max RS tires for $800-900 versus, like a Falcon Zenith, RT660 or 615, almost double that, if not definitely double that. Okay, next, brakes. Brakes are not as big of a concern in autocross. In terms of their clamping power, absolutely. In terms of their longevity under heat, a lot less so. Most autocross courses are fairly short, so your brakes really aren't going to get up to that high of a temperature. For your longer ones, say roughly a mile or longer, then they are a lot more of a concern. But you can get a good set of pads that will provide a clamping force and be fairly resistant to heat for not terrible money. I run a Hawks HPS 5.0 and otherwise completely factory brake setup. It's still the factory 10.5-inch rotor, still the S10/Regal caliper, just the pad, and .4 just to make sure that I don't boil the brake fluid. Those two things, I think all in, it was like $300 for the fluid, the pads, that setup. And it's been more than enough for all of my autocross and some track sprints as well. Track sprints, we really are starting to cook the 10.5-inch rotors, but in terms of fade, there's no fade, 0. So big win there. Probably should start looking at drilled and slotted or something. But to get yourself started, your factory brake setup with maybe a pad is going to be plenty. So that could be a point to save some money, but don't save too much money because brakes are a huge, huge aspect of your safety. You don't want to go piling into a ditch. If you start to feel, whether it be on the short, medium, or even some of the long autocrosses, that you're starting to get some brake fade, definitely look into brakes. And please use your brakes, please. The only 2 autocross accidents I've ever witnessed were because they did not use their brakes. They're there, you need to use them. Okay, the mechanicals. This is another portion that you may be able to save some money with. Purely finding a reliable engine platform. That way you're not constantly spending money on replacement pieces and parts. Small block Chevy. I mean, do I need to say anything about that? They're legendarily reliable. Some may say that the tune port is not so much. I personally haven't had any problems with it other than when I first bought this car and it had been sitting for 15 years. Obviously, needed fuel system stuff then. But, yeah. That and like Hondas. Hondas are hella reliable. Another great choice. And as with any practice in motorsport, keeping it simple helps a ton. This is a basically completely stock L98 350 tune port. It does have a cold air intake. That was only done because the plastic one does not flow well, and it may have been cracked. So make sure you have ample cooling for your engine. That way you're not going to overheat. But just keep it simple. Keep it reliable. Another way to limit yourself in terms of how much you spend and be limited by the rulebook is to just run a street class. Not only is it the lowest barrier to entry because you don't need to do you don't have to do any modifications to run in street class. It also kind of helps you from going too deep. This is a street class setup car. The stickiest tire you can run is a 200 treadwear, so that would be your Falcon RT 615s or 660s, something of that sort. You can do minor intake work, minor exhaust work. Basically, it's cat back. That's okay. You can do pads. But you can't swap out to a bigger brake setup. It's real simple stuff. And not only is that, again, that's not only just a low barrier to entry for you, it also kind of helps rein yourself in and not go too buck wild with modifying your car. If you want to do that, there are plenty of classes for that. By all means, they're a lot of fun. All of the classes are fun. Feel free to do it, but lowest barrier to entry would be street class, something like this. So your factory level Camaros, Civics, Miatas, what have you. Another great way to get some affordability out of autocross is to buy used parts. So this is a Wonder Bar off of a 3rd gen. The GTAs didn't come with it. I bought, but they were an option for the platform, so it's okay for street. Buy this off a parts guy or a parter. Cheaper than buying a new one. You can also save quite a bit of money buying used with tires. There's quite a few people who may only run tires for a season, or maybe they bought them and didn't use them. Great way to save some money on tires. They're not going to be the freshest. However, I'm going to save you quite a bit of coin. So these are a 16-inch wheel. This General G-Max is the stickiest thing I could find for the factory wheel size. So I wanted to make the jump to something stickier. Well, in order to do that, I have to buy wheels and tires. So to do that affordably, I found a used set of wheels, I found a used set of tires, and I picked them up for half of what the setup would have been new. Saved roughly $1,500 just in buying them used, and they're a pretty fresh set, and the wheels look fantastic. Now you may be thinking, well, if I'm doing autocross this affordably, I can't be competitive. And while, out of the gate, that might be true, but as you pick up skills, you learn, maybe you do some modifications or maintenance on your car to help it truly achieve or truly perform the best that it can as it sits. I mean, you can get top half. The last event of last year, I got top 20 out of 94. So you can still be very competitive as you pick up skill. I guess I should also note, keep in mind, those results are with a car that's really not designed to go autocrossing. It's designed to handle decent, but she's a big car. She's a big girl. So it's kind of like trying to navigate a land yacht, but it still works really good. So yeah, don't be chagrined against the 3rd gen. She performs pretty good. And let's be honest, it really isn't about how you place. Yes, is that a nice icing on the cake at the end of a race day? Absolutely. But the real value of it is you are going out, racing, honing your skills for dirt cheap. I mean, all in for a year of racing with this car. I did 8 events in 2024 and 2025. My yearly cost, and that included a brand new set of those General G-Max both years, all in, it was about $1,500 for the full year of 8 events of racing. That's not bad. That's fuel, that's maintenance parts, that's the tires, that's your entry fee, all of it, about $1,500. And you might spend that. I mean, that's a brand new sway bar. But you got a whole year racing, just racing a factory level car for $1,500. And you made memories, you honed your skills, you made friends. I mean, it's really hard to beat that value per dollar. If you're interested in getting into autocross, great way to find events is looking them up on Facebook. A lot of clubs will list their events there. Otherwise, motorsportreg.com. It's done by Haggerty, actually. They have an awesome list of just about every practice of motorsport and how to sign up, or sign-up's done right through there. You can select by region, you can select by practice. It's a great website. Look in those 2 places. I'm sure you'll be able to find an event in your area. Unless you live in like the Mojave, then you might have some problems. But just about everywhere else, that should be your ticket. So what are you waiting for? Go out and race your car. It's dirt cheap to autocross. You can roll up with your Civic, whether it be fully modified or bone stock. You can have a great time, learn a lot of stuff, and what's holding you back? I mean, everyone's the F and G at some point. May as well get it out of the way now. Have a good day.